Welcome to another lesson. We are going to be learning about diction analysis today. Now, earlier in the course, you have already talked about diction, used diction, analyzed diction, especially in the Sonnet 18 video and in just covering sonnets in general. So this should not be new. You should know some of the basics of diction analysis. We're going to go a little bit more in detail, and I'm going to really flesh everything out for you, so that way you guys are set up to do your own diction analysis. I absolutely love analyzing diction because I think it is one of the easiest go-tos in any type of text. It doesn't matter if you're reading a novel or a very, very short poem, you could analyze diction because diction is word choice. So let's get into it, and then I'll even show you a model and an example of doing a diction analysis within a poem, and then it would be up to you guys to practice, and you're going to be writing your own diction analysis shortly. So you should know at this point that diction just simply means word choice. But because it means word choice, it is not enough to say the author uses diction, because that is obvious. Every author, all the time, uses diction. I'll give you a little bit of insight. I score AP exams for the College Board, and we see this all the time. The students that could have a solid paper, but they do not qualify or clarify what diction they are describing, they typically do not score as high as those who slap an adjective in front of it. Now, it could be a negligible difference because the rest of the essay could be completely fine, but all that is to say, the College Board is even aware that one of the traps that students fall into is saying the author uses diction because it sounds fancy, it sounds like you know what you're talking about, and maybe you do, but you need an adjective in front of the word diction. You could look up online different charts and graphs and stuff that will show you, like graphic organizers that will show you different adjectives you can use for diction. They could be helpful. Check it out. Do a quick little Google search. But for you guys, just make sure that if you're analyzing a Shakespearean sonnet, you're not just saying Shakespeare uses diction to convey blah, 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 blah. Because it's kind of obvious. Obviously, Shakespeare uses words. So within diction, when we're talking about words, you have two parent categories or two general ways of organizing them. You have denotation of a word and connotation of a word. The denotation, just think of the D in denotation, is the dictionary definition. This is the literal meaning of the word, right? So you could think about any word right now. Think about that word. What is the literal meaning? But now, connotation is more of the implied meaning. It's the emotional vibe of the word, right? Because words have weight to them. Words convey emotion, which is why we have so many of them. And connotation often gets created because of culture, right? Or context. So think of the sea. A good explanation of this is some words that are inappropriate to say, whether they be curse words or a specific like slang term. If we really question, well, why is that curse word inappropriate? Is there something inherently bad about the word? Probably not, right? But the denotation is completely fine, right? So a specific word means a specific thing, and it is completely fine to use. However, what gets us into trouble is the connotation of those words, right? So the connotation or the emotional weight of a specific curse word is the issue, right? If you think in history, right, the use of the N-word is not something that we would casually be using today. It has an emotional connotation to it. It has a weight to it. The denotation, especially at the time, in like the 1800s, specifically just meant an ignorant person. But obviously that word was weaponized and used against the black community and created issues, right? So that's where Yeah, the denotation is completely fine, but the connotation, man, oh man, do not use that word. You can get in trouble for using it, right? Especially if you use it in a derogatory way. You could think of other words like that too. There are tons of them out there. So just know that words have a denotation and words have a connotation. In literature, we are usually dealing with the connotation, right? Because we want to look at implications, we want to see the subtext and read between the lines. So words have weight. Just remember that. Words have weight. Here's an example. Let's say a friend buys you a very inexpensive birthday gift, right? And they intended it to be a good birthday gift, right? But it's very inexpensive. And then another day, a group of your friends is with you and is talking about it. One of your friends describes it as, wow, she's just incredibly thrifty. Now, that seems very good. That seems positively effusive about this person, right? Thrifty here has a very positive connotation, right? The diction of the word thrifty connotes high praise, right? It sounds like this person is smart, resourceful, specifically found something, right? Whether it be through couponing or seeing a discount, whatever. She knows how to manage a budget and she was able to make her money stretch. It also seems to imply that the gift is probably pretty good, right? If you say, wow, she's incredibly thrifty, you're saying that in a positive way, which means you probably like the gift. Friend 2, though, is not as strong of a praise for this person, right? Friend 2 says she is incredibly frugal. Well, thrifty and frugal, the denotations are essentially the same. They are synonyms, right? But there's a different emotional weight behind friend 2 saying this, right? It is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Frugality can be a good thing, but it normally is neutral. It's a bit more careful. It definitely implies that the friend is probably protective of her resources, maybe has to be strict with her budget because of her life, right? Maybe she doesn't have too much money. When you say she's incredibly frugal, you're kind of saying like, yeah, the gift is pretty good. It's understandable. Like, you're not criticizing her for being frugal, right? So this is more of a neutral. It's more of like a medium. But then friend 3 says she is incredibly cheap. Now, again, cheap means frugal, means thrifty. They are synonymous with each other. However, the weight behind the word is very different. If we had to point out one friend that is being critical of the birthday gift and of the friend who bought the birthday gift, it is definitely friend 3, right? Calling somebody cheap is very much more negative than calling somebody frugal, than calling somebody thrifty. So that's a direct insult. It has a negative connotation. It kind of implies that the friend is being stingy, is not very generous, maybe even has a poor attitude, maybe didn't even care about the birthday, right? If you said that the person is thrifty, you know that they care about you, right? Even if you didn't necessarily like the gift, you understand. Same thing with frugal. You might not like the gift, but you still like your friend. Here, though, she's incredibly cheap. That has some baggage to it. That has some weight to it. So just think about words as having emotional weight. What is the vibe of the word? And we do this all the time, even in text messages and stuff. And this is often where miscommunication happens. So I'm going to show you guys now an example here using Robert Frost's poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay. And we're just going to read it real quick. You should be able to note that it is not necessarily a square, it's more of a rectangle. It is not a sonnet because it's not 14 lines. But there is some form of rhyme scheme, right? You could already tell gold and hold, flower and hour, leaf and grief, and day and stay. So if we wanted to scan through it, we could say A, B, B, C, C, D, D, right? We could do all that. But for diction, we just want to point out the words that are important. Now, how do you determine which word is important? Well, in a poem, most of them are going to be important. A lot of the times the end words, but it's the words that, like, even when you're reading, you kind of emphasize a little bit more. But more than that, it's also the words that if you ask the question, like, Robert Frost is writing this poem, why did he use this word as opposed to a different word, right? Words like is, we are normally not going to analyze with too much depth. Words like a or so, right? For the most part, those aren't going to be the words that we concern ourselves with. We're going to concern ourselves with adjectives. We're going to concern ourselves with verbs or just any peculiar words that pop up. So nature's first green is gold. Interesting, right? So for me, gold is definitely one that I want to come back to, right? And we should start thinking, what is the implication of using this word? Why couldn't they have used a different word there, right? So just keep that in mind. Her hardest hue to hold. Okay, so even that, like, why hold? Why not grab? Why not hang on to? Her early leaf's a flower. All right, what implication comes with flower? But only so an hour. Then leaf subsides. That one seems interesting to me, to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. All right, so we have some words that we can at least take a look at here that are important. So again, this first line, right? If we wanted to get this first line and kind of analyze the diction of gold, right? You could ask yourself, well, Frost could have said nature's first green is a different color, right? Like nature's first green is, he could have said just bright, right? He could say bright. He could say nature's first green is yellow. So we have to ask, why gold, right? Gold often shows that something is precious, something holds monetary value, right? So this is certainly super important, right? It is positive, and it's saying nature's first green is this, right? If it's just nature's first green is bright, it's like, all right, it's not as strong though. It doesn't show just how valuable it is, right? And then if we wanted to jump down to, I think, one of the other important words, like maybe one of the most important, this word subsides. That's a peculiar word to use. We don't really use that too much today in our common speech, right? Saying then leaf subsides to leaf. It makes it a little confusing. Why not use a normal word like changes, right? That's essentially what they're talking about here, right? Why not use the word changes? Why not use the word, I don't know, turns, right? Shifts, something like that. Then leaf turns to leaf, or leaf changes. Well, the word subside literally means to sink, right? To kind of fall down into. So you have connotations of that, of like being diminished, of kind of, you think of just kind of drowning almost, right? Of like something is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you cannot help it, right? So it definitely seems like it is a bit more desperate, like leaf subsiding or sinking, drowning, to leaf, right? By choosing this word, Frost seems to imply that a green summer leaf isn't really an upgrade from a spring bud. It's actually a downgrade or a loss of some type of perfection, right? And then if we go further on, even that word sank. Sank kind of fits in with subside, so I like that. It's kind of paired there. It says, so Eden sank to grief. Why not say, once again, why not say Eden turned? Eden changed to grief, right? Why not say they fell into grief instead of it's a sinking? Kind of reminds me of like quicksand, right? Like you're in there, you are slowly sinking to this thing, right? Sank definitely implies a slow, heavy, irreversible drowning under this weight of grief, under this weight of sadness, right? It definitely matches the tone of inevitable loss. Nothing gold can stay, right? Nothing precious, nothing amazing is going to stay that way. Time affects everything and everybody, right? We go from order to chaos, back to order, right? Things do not last. Nothing gold can stay. So we are definitely able to use diction to help us analyze the tone of the poem. We're able to use diction to kind of see the shifting here of starting off with something so precious, but it's that precious, right? right? Eden that sinks to grief, like this perfect thing, this perfect nature, perfect person, whatever we want to interchange and put in there, it doesn't last, right? So we're able to analyze the connotation of these words to help us formulate the tone, and thus that would eventually help us understand the thematic statement here, right? So it's a short poem. You could certainly look at other words, right, and kind of get the vibe of words like hardest. Why did they say but only an hour? Why not 24 hours, right? All of that. But clearly, if I had to analyze the diction in this passage, gold is going to be numero uno there, and then subsides and sank is going to be some of the most important things that I look at. So there you have it. There's a lesson on diction. Just remember, words have weight. That is the reason why, even if we wanted to say there are no bad words, there's just bad times to say these words because of the connotation. Now, you could end up saying that there are specific words where there's never really a good time to say them because they are inappropriate. This is also why in different cultures and in different regions of the United States, and especially in different parts of the world, certain words and phrases can be completely fine to say here in the US, but not be okay to say in England, and vice versa, right? I knew a person from Australia, and they used some words that would be ridiculously offensive to us in the US, right? But it's just part of their common tongue and common vernacular. So it all comes down to diction, the denotation and connotation of the words, and specifically those connotations being the implied meaning or the vibe of the word. So that's how you do a diction analysis. Again, normally you are going to use the diction analysis to set up and defend the tone of the poem and thus come to some thematic statement.